The Drift by Sanford Lab, where our researchers answer your giant science questions in bite-sized videos. Submit your questions via direct message on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Hi, I'm Mark Hanhardt, and this is the Daily Drift. Today's question is, what is it like to work underground? Well, that's a fantastic question. The answer is really going to depend on what part of the underground you're in. There's something like 370 miles of tunnel underground at Sanford Lab. It ranges all the way from 300 feet beneath the surface to about 5,000 feet deep. So there's a lot of difference between these areas. We only use about 10 or 12 miles of all of that space for science, and that's what's routinely occupied. But even in that 10 or 12 miles, there's actually a lot of variance. So there are some areas that are just like you would expect underground to be. They're dark and they're wet. There's water coming down from the ceiling or down the walls. There are areas where a thin film of slime has built up on stuff, and the biologists are really excited to get their hands on that stuff. Other areas, though, are very clean, and actually to step into them, you wouldn't think that you were underground at all. Those areas are specifically the Davis and the Ross campuses at the 4850, which is the level 4,850 feet beneath the surface. Those areas have polished floors, they have clean walls, and they're really well lit. We have running electricity, running water, flushable toilets. We have fridges and microwaves and coffee makers. We have super fast internet and Wi-Fi in just about all the lab spaces. It's pretty easy to feel pampered underground, actually. The only difference really between being there and in an office building is that there are no windows in the lab, which is all right, because all you'd be looking at is a bunch of rock. One of the real differences, though, is the fact that to get there, you have to take a 12.5-minute ride down on what we call the cage. That's what we call the elevator that takes us down underground. And if you forget something when you're underground, you forgot something in your car, forgot something in the office on the surface, you have to wait for a cage to become available and then get a 12.5-minute ride up and then a 12.5-minute ride down. So it's not as easy to just pop out and grab stuff. And that also goes for parts. You can't just pop down to the hardware store and grab something. There's a whole process involved for getting up to the surface and getting material and getting that material underground. But other than that, it's most of the areas underground that are actively occupied by researchers and scientists are pretty swanky. They're pretty nice. So working underground doesn't feel a lot different from working on the surface in most places. All right. Well, thank you for joining us in the Daily Drift. Please keep your questions coming to us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.